leadership at 26,000 feet, our presenter for the session aims to tell the youth of India how leadership is a trait that can be learned. We have an influential speaker who's followed by millions across the globe for his impactful talks on leadership, a former soldier, a leadership coach, former CEO of NAD. Please put your hands together and welcome Captain Raghu Raman. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a ton, Bharat. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity to speak with all of you. Firstly, happy Lori, happy Pongal, happy Makar Sankranti to all the people of all communities. I realize कि ये जो attendance है ये पूरे भारत के youth के हैं. So my language I'll keep changing between Hindi and English, and I'll assure you कि जब मैं हिंदी में बोल रहा हूँ तो उसी का अनुवाद मैं इंग्लिश में भी कर दूंगा. English speakers will also be comfortable because whatever I'm going to say, I will also say that in English. I thought of many options of what I should talk to you about today, but then I then thought that the most impactful session that I will be able to do for you would be a session that is something that I do in these schools. I do in academies also, in various different management academies, military institutions. And this is about the fundamental elements of leadership. कि leadership में वो 5-6 चीजें क्या होती हैं जो अगर आप हासिल कर लें, जिसके ऊपर आप अपना थोड़ा फोकस करके उस पे काम करें, तो आप किसी भी माहौल में, चाहे आप जो भी कर रहे हो, आप एक स्पेशल फोर्सेस टाइप की एटीट्यूड, एक वो एटीट्यूड. और ये स्पेशल फोर्सेस सिर्फ फौज में नहीं होते हैं. जो डॉक्टर्स काम करते हैं सर्जिकल में या जो रोड एक्सीडेंट में ट्रॉमा की मदद करते हैं, ये सब स्पेशल फोर्सेस हैं जो एक टीम में जब काम करते हैं, उनका जो काम का level है, the eliteness of their work is actually the function of them working together and being led by a good leader. And why I have chosen Army, I could have chosen other environments also. The reason why I have chosen Army as a backdrop to this story, which I'm going to share with you, is very simple reason that the government of India, the various ministries, the various ministers may have anything in terms of the national policy, foreign policy, defense policy. But the last 100 meters of that policy is going to be delivered by some lieutenant or captain. The last 100 meters जो है वो पॉलिसी का, वो पूरे इंडिया के ताकत का, इसके न्यूक्लियर माइट का, इसके जो फाइनल जो एज है वो एक 24, 25, 27, 23 साल का लड़का या लड़की है जो आप हैं. That is the reason why I am choosing the Army as a backdrop. तो उसके लिए I am going to use a presentation and I'll just share my screen. Oh, you have disabled. You'll have to give me the screen sharing. Right. So in the meanwhile, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the screen sharing, which takes usually a couple of minutes because I'm going to ask you 3 questions. They're there in the presentation also. Firstly, I want you to think of what is the toughest challenge that you are facing in your life. And it can be a challenge right now also. You might be facing a challenge. I know many of you might have lost a loved one in the last 2 years. Many of you may have lost financial stability and whatever challenge you are facing. मतलब जो challenge आपके दिमाग को खा रहा था, जो आप भूल गए थे, ये सेशन वगैरह में मेरे से पिछले वाले स्पीकर्स ने जो आपको मोटिवेशन दिया उसमें भूल गए वो सेशन, मैंने फिर से याद दिला दिया आपको. I want you to think of that problem in a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very, very big problem. No, screen is still not shareable. Okay, so Bharat, I'm assuming you are doing something on that, so I'll leave that to you. The second question, do you think life has been fair to you? आपने जितनी मेहनत करी, चाहे पढ़ाई में करी, इधर करी, उधर करी, लोगों की मदद करी, लेकिन इस सब के बावजूद जो आपको लाइफ से मिला, do you believe that life has been fair to you? If you feel life has been very, very kind to you, life has been very fair to you, you can give yourself a 10. If you believe नहीं मेरे को तो लाइफ में बहुत मुसीबतें आई हैं, बहुत दिक्कत हुई है, you can give yourself a 0. और कई लोग तो मेरे को बोलते हैं मेरी इतनी वाट लगी है मुझे तो नेगेटिव में जाना पड़ेगा. You can do that also, whichever way you want to go. And the last, with all the blessings you have, all the resources you have, जो भी है, do you think you are doing the best that you can do with it? तो ये 3 सवालों का आपने अपने आप को जवाब देना है. I'm hoping by this time, yes, I have got the yeah. Now we have the screen, and as I promised you, these were the 3 questions, the first slide. So you have not missed out on anything. What is the most difficult challenge you are facing right now? Have your efforts been rewarded? Or finally, do you believe that you are doing the best you can? तो मेरी कहानी शुरू होती है एक वारदात से जो हिंदुस्तान में आज से 13 साल तकरीबन पहले हुआ था, almost to the month, about 2 months ago. And this was 26/11. Many of you might be very young at that time, but I think old enough to remember what was 26/11. And I think every Indian's life has changed after that. So even if you were not remembering, you would still be affected by 26/11. As many of you remember, this was a terror attack in which 10 Pakistani terrorists came and attacked 3 different places in Mumbai. So that is not the story. The story is about this group of people called the NSG, and this NSG was it is India's crack counter-terror unit, and this unit is based in a place called Manesar. And from Manesar, they were rushed to Palam Airport. They were brought to Palam Airport, and then they were supposed to be brought to Bombay. लेकिन कई लोगों को याद होगा, आप अपने पेरेंट्स से पूछेंगे, आपको याद होगा कि इनको वहां पहुंचने के बाद, पालम एयरपोर्ट पहुंचने के बाद तकरीबन 14 घंटे पूरी रात उनको इंतजार करना पड़ा बिफोर दे कुड कम द नेक्स्ट डे. So I want you to visualize that suppose all combat units, they have what is called a QRT, quick reaction team, which is ready to go into action. They are locked and loaded, हथियार तैयार, गोलियां तैयार हथियार में, और जैसे उनको मिशन मिले, they are ready to launch it to the mission. तो इनके 4-5 घंटे का शिफ्ट होता है, डिपेंडिंग ऑन द लोकेशन एंड द डेंजर. 4-hour शिफ्ट, 4 घंटे बाद या 6 घंटे बाद दूसरी यूनिट आती है, फिर तीसरी यूनिट आती है. अभी आप ये समझिए कि ये this unit has been kept on standby for 14 hours. 14 hours is 3 life cycles of a hot standby. And then they are rushed into Mumbai, and when they reach Mumbai, they are told it is not one target. It is not 2 targets. It is 3 targets that have to be neutralized simultaneously. Taj, Oberoi, and Chabad. And you have to do this task with the troops, Nafri, leadership, officer to men ratio, weapons, communication system, drills, rehearsals, everything that has been done for one mission at a time. Because no special forces unit before 26/11 has practiced for simultaneously 3 missions to take place at the same time. Now, of course, our Jawans, they familiarize themselves with 5-star hotels, with metros, malls, theaters and all of that. But 26/11 से पहले कोई भी भारतीय सेना का जवान अमूमन 5-star होटल में नहीं जा पाता था. So for many of these soldiers, when they entered into Taj or Oberoi, it was the first time they were entering into a 5-star hotel. तो यूं समझिए कि 14 घंटे आपको थकान में रखने के बाद जब आपको मिशन में लॉन्च किया गया, ये बताया गया कि ये 1 नहीं 2 नहीं 3 अलग मिशन है, और इस मिशन की ना आपने पहले रिहर्सल करी है, ना आपने पहले ट्रेनिंग करी है, और ये मिशन का जो माहौल है कंप्लीटली नया है. बिकॉज यू हैव नेवर एवर एंटर्ड इनटू. तो 5-star होटल का दरवाजा कैसे खुलता है, उसमें लिफ्ट ऊपर नीचे कैसे जाती है, हाउ वेदर द वॉल्स आर बुलेट प्रूफ और बुलेट्स कैन गो थ्रू देम, यू हैव नो आइडिया अबाउट दैट. एंड येट these troops went in. They did a remarkable job because none of the casualties, whatever number of people who unfortunately died in 26/11, none of them died after the NSG took over. All of them died before that, but once the NSG took over the operations, the only people to die were the 9 terrorists and unfortunately the 2 commandos. They finished their mission and they got back into their planes and they went back home. This was the story of this unit. Now, why did I begin with this story? क्योंकि ये शायद पहली एक वारदात थी, combat story, which most Indians saw on TV. They saw it live on TV. Right? They could actually see operations happening. Many people who were in Bombay even went near this Taj and Oberoi. They could hear the gunshots and all of that. But even as I'm talking to you right now, across our borders, across our various locations, there are hundreds of operations going on. There are search operations going on in Valley, encounters happening, terrorism, this, that. In China border, people are in -30, -45. All these operations are happening, and many of these operations are very risky operations. So many times when I do this session for young leaders such as yourselves, मैं सवाल पूछता हूँ कि why do soldiers fight? लड़ते क्यों हैं? Why do they go to fight? Knowing well, fully well, in some operations they know fully well that in this assault, when you are assaulting in mountain and all, the attacker to defender ratio, मतलब अगर उधर defender 10 लोग बैठे हुए हैं, तो attackers will have to be at least 80 to 100 people, because only then about 30-40 will reach on top. Rest all will be either killed or be badly wounded. But why do soldiers fight? What is the reason? And if I was doing this interactively with you, I would have, asked for you to give me the answers. But unfortunately, since we can't do it interactively, given the format, I will show you the answers. I want you to think of the answers, or maybe even say loudly if you're with your friends or whatever, say the answer why you think soldiers fight. And what I'll do is in the next slide, I'll show you the answers, because I've done this session many, many times in my past to audiences very similar to you. And these are the answers they give. Patriotism, देश के लिए लड़ते हैं, झंडे के लिए लड़ते हैं, discipline है, training दी गई है उनको, loyalty है country के लिए, pride है, training, all of this. This is the reasons. And I'm sure many of आपकी बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ मैं, उन students की बात कर रहा हूँ. जब उनसे मैं ये पूछता हूँ, अच्छा चलो भाई ये मान लिया कि वो देश के लिए कर रहा है, आपके लिए कर रहा है, doing it for you, तो कर कहाँ रहा है भाई? And I put the map of India and asked them, where is, say, Siachen Glacier, where we have been fighting for almost 40 years now. Now something very funny happens कि जो ये bright young people of our country जो हमको ये बता देते हैं San Jose किधर है, San Francisco किधर है, उनको ये नहीं पता. Unless of course they have from फौजी background या उनका थोड़ा interest है defense वगैरह में, उसके अलावा उनको ये पता ही नहीं कि ये सियाचिन कहाँ है, ये finger 4 किधर है, गलवान है कहाँ. तो ये हमारे को समझना. Of course, for a soldier, it is important to fight for the nation. But let me tell you one thing. This is my personal experience, and it's an experience of many, many people who have been in the armed forces or any special forces team. The most important reason why soldiers fight is the comrades who are with them. जो उनके साथी उनके बंकर में उनके साथ है. पहला रीजन. दूसरा रीजन, जो उनका लेफ्टिनेंट या कमांडर या जो उनको लीड कर रहा है, जो उनके ऊपर है. और तीसरा रीजन, पलटन की इज्जत जो उन्होंने अपने कंधे पे पहनी थी. इन सब के बाद नेशनल विजन, नेशनल मिशन आता है, क्योंकि जो आखिरी 100 मीटर्स में ऑपरेट करता है ना, उसका विजन नेशनल पॉलिसी की तरफ नहीं हो सकता. उसका विजन हैज टू बी टुवर्ड्स द मिशन, दैट हाउ डू आई अचीव द मिशन विद दिस टीम, एंड दिस टीम विल फाइट ओनली फॉर दैट वन लीडर. They will not fight for some national policy. You can't say this is India's national policy, let us attack that post in Kargil. It doesn't work that way. You will have to say, follow me. And when they see you go ahead and there is that sense of camaraderie, then troops will follow you right up to their deaths. No ESOP, no pay hikes, no material gains, no employee of the month, nothing is required. These are the three tools using which combat leaders take their troops into sometimes certain death. And rest of the presentation, what I'm going to share with you is to show you how they do it. I'm going to share the fundamental principles of how that kind of leadership charisma can actually be built by everybody. Anybody can do that. So let me begin by first telling you where Siachen Glacier is, because I'm sure most of you know it, but for the one odd person who did not know, I'm just showing you. As you can see this line in JNK as it goes up, this dotted line comes to stop at a point called point NJ9842. ये एक नक्शे में एक grid reference बोलते हैं इसको, हम एक grid reference है. और यहाँ से ऊपर की लाइन जहाँ पे आपको कोई लाइन नजर नहीं आ रही है, खाली जगह नजर आ रही है, इस एरिया को सियाचिन सेक्टर कहते हैं. तो I will not get into the geopolitics and all. मैं आपको जमीनी हालत के बारे में थोड़ा बहुत बताऊंगा, क्योंकि leadership is about leading in tough times, not in easy times. That is when leadership is really required. जैसे बोलते हैं ना, चाकू से आप सब्जी भी काट सकते हैं, बटर भी काट सकते हैं, टमाटर भी काट सकते हैं, लेकिन टमाटर काटने से चाकू तेज नहीं होता है. चाकू को तेज करने के लिए, to make the knife sharp, you have to grind it against stone. There has to be hardship. Only then leadership actually comes out. So that is why I'm setting the stage. So if you look at the map of India and you see that red dot on top, which is flickering, that red dot is where the Siachen Glacier is. So let's begin by, I'm going to take you with the help of pictures through a tour of the glacier. Many of you might know this, और कुछ लोगों को पता नहीं होगा, that Siachen Glacier में temperatures can go down to -30, -40 at times. And -30 is very difficult to imagine, क्योंकि आप unless you come from some JNK or those kind of areas, you will not even know what -30 is. तो मैं आपको एक आसान तरीका बताता हूँ -30 समझने का. आपके फ्रिज में जो फ्रीजर है उसका टेम्परेचर है -19. So if you open your fridge, open your freezer and put your hand inside it, then you will feel what -19 is. So I want you to keep your hand there for about a minute. And now visualize that if this temperature goes down exponentially, not linearly, not 1 degree, 2 degree, exponentially to minus 40, what will it feel like? And try and keep your hand inside the freezer for 5 minutes. And you will understand what minus 40 is. And then try to visualize troops who have to live in minus 40 for 1 year, 12 months. So then you will get a context of what minus 40 is and what Siachen. And Siachen is another problem. It is not only cold, but वहाँ पे oxygen level भी बहुत कम है because वहाँ पे tree line नहीं है. If you go to places like Canada and all, it might be minus 30. लेकिन वहाँ पे पेड़ों की वजह से there will still be heavy oxygen. But in Siachen, every roti, every chapati, every bullet at times has to be brought by a 2-stage chopper. पहले Mi-17 chopper लेके आएगा, वो parachute dropping करेगा, फिर वो बड़े packets will be broken into smaller packets, then they'll be loaded into these cheetah aircrafts, and then they will be brought to the post. So for sustenance, even for letters, for everything, this is the air link that has to be maintained. This is the Siachen base camp, जहाँ जवानों की 90 दिन की training होती है. It's considered one of the toughest trainings in the world. And after this training, these troops are inducted into those peaks that you see in the background. And some of these peaks are so far that the first leg troops have to be taken by helicopters, as you can see over here, that the troops are taken by helicopters. Now, the deployment in the glacier is something like this, that there is a ridge line, एक पहाड़ी का ridge line है, उसके सामने एक valley है, और उस valley के परले तरफ, like the next slide will show you very clearly, the one on the right hand side is part of the Indian sector, the one on the left hand side is part of the Pakistani sector, and these are literally eyeball to eyeball. In many of the places you can actually see them, they can see you, you can fire at them, and they can also fire at you, which they very often do. So you have machine gun fire, you have heavy artillery firing, sniper firing, all of this keeps happening all the time. But now let's start taking some lessons of leadership from combat. And let me show you this first lesson. If you see all of these soldiers, they are tied to each other with a rope. आपने देखा, ये अगर ध्यान से देखेंगे, हर एक के ऊपर एक रस्सा बंधा हुआ है. उसका एक कारण है. Reason for that is that, as you are aware, a glacier is a slow-moving mass of ice, just like a river. एक नदी समझ लीजिए इसको बर्फ की. बड़े मजेदार बात है, कभी you take a tin can and you chuck it here, and after about 5 hours you'll see that the can has moved there because the ground is moving constantly. Now because it is moving, इसके अंदर cracks आते हैं जिनको हम crevices बोलते हैं, crevices, और कई crevices इतने deep होते हैं कि उसके अंदर if you take a stone and throw it inside, you'll hear it going kadak 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 kadak. You won't hear it hitting the bottom. It is that deep. Now what happens is, because of heavy snowfall, the crevices get covered with a layer of snow, and sometimes it's called a snow bridge. So sometimes you can walk on it and nothing will happen, but sometimes it will just give way, and that is the reason why you see every soldier is tied to the next soldier. But in an eventuality, खुदा ना खास्ता अगर के कोई भी जवान एक crevasse में गिर जाता है, तो immediately the drill is that the remaining soldiers are supposed to go down on ground. They take their pickaxe and the ice axe and they put it on the ground. They arrest the fall with their crampons. Then they stabilize this man who's struggling inside the crevasse, and then they pull him out with the rope. And this is the drill that works very, very well in theory. In practice, every soldier is exhausted. It is minus 40. Their body metabolism is down. They have been patrolling with great amount of difficulty, sometimes in snow that comes up to their thighs. They barely have any energy. और इससे थके हुए हालत में अगर एक 70 किलो का आदमी जो 20 किलो का लोड लेके वो 100 किलो अगर झटाक से नीचे गया तो पूरे के पूरे पेट्रोल को वो खींच लेती है रोप, एंड एवरीवन इज स्ट्रगलिंग टू फाइंड सम परचेज कि कहीं कोई पकड़ मिले. और वो अगर powdery snow hai, then the whole rope starts getting dragged to the crevice, inside the crevice. What do you think are the orders then? What are the orders then? Now, sitting in your comfort at your home, many of you may have given the answer that cut the rope. That is the order. ये 9 लोगों की जान बचाने के लिए एक का rope cut कर दे. But it takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of courage because this chap who's hanging at the other end of the rope, he is the same guy who looked after you when you were sick and you were on a bunker. He is the same guy who kept food hot and warm for you when you were coming back from a patrol. He is the same guy who gave you money. उधार में उसने पैसे दिए जब आपको अपनी बहन की शादी करनी थी. And he is the same guy who went and met your parents. आपके घर गया जब आपको छुट्टी नहीं मिली, then he is the guy who went and met your parents. He is the guy hanging at the other end of the rope. It takes a lot of courage to order cutting that rope. But the first lesson of any good team is that the mission comes first, always. No matter what happens, the mission has to be a priority. And if it means the sacrifice of a soldier, it means the sacrifice of a comrade. Of course, every effort will be made to try and save that soldier. But if that cannot be done, then the leader's job is to remind everybody and to remember that mission always comes first. This is a very interesting post in the glacier. ऐसे कई पोस्ट हैं. इस पोस्ट को विंटर कटआउट पोस्ट बोलते हैं. इसका मतलब once troops have been inducted into that post, then they cannot be brought out for the next 6 months. And the reason for that, if you notice the steep gradient on the wall on the right hand side, the mountain wall, in which tons of snow falls every year. And even if there's the slightest of vibrations, immediately an avalanche will start. So once the troops have been inducted in, there is no way you can de-induct them out. You can see them, you can talk to them on radio or telephone, but you can't de-induct them out. 2 tenures before I was posted in the glacier, there was a young lieutenant, a 22-year-old boy, who had taken 18 men into that post. And within 2 days of going there, one of the soldiers died of HAPO, high altitude pulmonary edema. You have pulmonary edema and you have cerebral edema. He died of pulmonary edema. Now, by the way, that happens quite often in high altitude. Matter of fact, those who have been to Leh, even on a vacation, you will remember that you must have landed in the airport, or airport mein utarte saath, the loudspeaker must have been telling you, don't walk, take it easy and all of that. And before you went there, you must have taken Dimox and all of those things. And that is, Leh is at 15,000 feet. We are talking here about 18,000, 20,000, 22,000 feet, those kind of peaks. So this soldier died. So उसकी डेड बॉडी को उन्होंने पैराशूट क्लॉथ में रैप करके पोस्ट के साइड में रखा. You cannot throw away the body. It's one of your own soldiers. Nothing will happen to the body. It's -40. I want you to visualize the courage and the grit required by that 22-year-old boy, who then had to lead 17 men through 5 months and 28 days of this hell, with a dead body lying inside their post, reminding what can happen to them on a daily basis. And compare that with the long face we get sometimes when what we wanted, we don't get it, when we don't get something that we were seeking, or somebody, our boss or our parents give us a bullshit someday, and all that. Somebody has stolen your car parking, to aapko din bigad gaya. Just compare it with that. Just get context of it. Because by the way, these 22, 23, 24-year-old lads that are leading our forces right from the front in all spheres of life, we are not importing them from Denmark or New York or US or something. They are all coming from the same diaspora. They are coming from you. I'm 100% sure that every person who's listening to me right now, with 1 degree or 0 degree of separation, knows somebody who is in the army. And you'll know that they're very regular people. They're very ordinary people. They're not supermen. They're completely ordinary people. The second lesson for any leader is that you are accountable, period. The accountability, if you call yourself a leader at whatever level, then the responsibility is on your shoulder. These stars that you wear on your shoulder are to remind you that you are accountable for whatever happens, whether it's morale, whether it's life, whether it's death, there are no excuses that a leader can look at, because a leader is a person who realizes that for whatever happens under her command, she is accountable for it. There is no shifting of accountability. The third lesson I want to share with you goes back to 2 stories. One, of course, you remember they were all wearing a rope, and you know the reason now why. The other reason is, you see all these soldiers, they are wearing something on top of their boots, right? This is called anklet. इसको anklet बोलते हैं. ये जूते के ऊपर से लेके घुटने तक बांधा जाता है इसको. कैनवस का कवर होता है, और इसको बांधने का कारण ये है कि जब आपका पैर बर्फ के अंदर धंस जाए, तो पैर जूते के अंदर बर्फ ना घुस जाए. अगर बर्फ अंदर घुस गया, तो जब आप चलते हैं तो बर्फ गर्मी की वजह से पानी हो जाएगा, और फिर आपको पानी तंग करेगा अंदर. नाउ, अगर इन जवानों में से, इस पेट्रोल में से किसी ने भी बोला कि साहब मेरे जूते में बर्फ गया, अब no matter how tired this patrol is, no matter how exhausted it is, they cannot stop it. Now, I want to remind you once again, especially those of you who are going to Leh Ladakh, that you were warned not to take long walks in high altitude, because when you take long walks in high altitudes, your chances, without rest, your chances of getting cerebral or pulmonary edema increases exponentially. It increases by 10, 20, 30 times. So that is why in high altitude, you're always required to take breaks between long distance patrols. But if any one of these soldiers says, ki saab, mere jute mein baraf ghus gaya, I've got snow inside my boots, now this patrol cannot stop. Because if it stops, the snow which went inside his boots and melted into water will instantly refreeze. And within seconds, he'll get chilblains, and within minutes, he might get frostbite, he might lose his foot. Third rule of combat leadership is that one man's negligence, one man's carelessness, one man's bad karma, and the entire team's life is in danger. Either the whole team will win or the whole team will lose. In a good team, there is no room for an individual gladiator. जो मतलब, सचिन का सेंचुरी बन गया, बाकी इंडिया जीते न जीते, वो मामला नहीं चलता अच्छे टीम में. Because in a good team, either the whole team will win or the whole team will lose. Because in good teams, you are literally joined at the hips with each other, like you can see here in the patrol. Now, what you're seeing over here is a group of tents where people live in the glacier, और उसके ऊपर आपको एक कपड़ों की कतार नजर आ रही है. तो ये इंटरैक्टिव होता तो I would have asked you what these clothes are, and normally people will say there are socks drying and all of that. But as some of you may have guessed, and those of you who've been to the Himachal area or Leh Ladakh will know this, that these are prayer flags. तो मैं आपको एक अच्छी कहानी बताना चाह रहा हूँ. So पहली बार when I was doing this session in ISB हैदराबाद, मेरे से पहले एक स्पीकर थे और उस स्पीकर ने एक कहानी बताई. तो हैदराबाद में आप लोगों को पता नहीं होगा, many of you may not know this, but in Hyderabad there is a temple called चिलकुर बालाजी. और IT वालों को पता होगा, जितने IT सॉफ्टवेयर वाले हैं सबको पता होगा. और ये चिलकुर बालाजी बहुत फेमस है. फेमस इसलिए इसको वीजा बालाजी भी बोलते हैं. और फेमस इसलिए है कि यहाँ पे कहते हैं कि अगर आप यूएस वीजा के लिए ट्राई कर रहे हैं, अच्छा सिर्फ यूएस वीजा के लिए काम करता है तो शेंगेन वगैरह के लिए मत जाइए. तो यूएस वीजा के लिए अगर आप ट्राई कर रहे हैं तो वहां पे अगर आप चाहेंगे, पहले आप वीजा के लिए अप्लाई करिए, फिर वहां जाइए, 10 चक्कर मारिए, फिर वापस आइए, आपका वीजा तैयार होगा, फिर जाके वहां पे 101 चक्कर मारने. दिस इज अप्रोक्सीमेटली, आई मे बी रॉन्ग बाय 1 or 2 चक्कर्स, बट मोर और लेस दिस इज द रिचुअल. और वो कहते हैं कि हो जाता है वीजा. अब पता नहीं क्यों होता है, ब्रांच ऑफिस है, पता नहीं व्हाट आइडिया, आई डोंट नो, बट हो जाता है. तो जब मैंने पहले एक कहानी सुनी तो मैंने आपको बताया कि मैं आपको एक कहानी बताता हूँ एक मंदिर की जो सियाचिन में एक जगह में है. उसको हम बोलते हैं प्रेशर कुकर बाबा मंदिर. तो इसकी कहानी ये है प्रेशर कुकर बाबा मंदिर की कि दूर एक, शायद आपको स्क्रीन में नजर आ रहा होगा, कोई पाकिस्तानी रिज है जहां से बहुत पहले सुना है कि एक हीट सीकिंग मिसाइल फायर हुआ था. और ये हीट सीकिंग मिसाइल इस पोस्ट में द हॉटेस्ट पार्ट, इट केम टू द हॉटेस्ट पार्ट एंड व्हिच वाज अ स्टोव एंड ब्लू द स्टोव अप, thus saving the people who were sleeping in the barracks. And ever since, those aluminium fragments of that pressure cooker are kept in a shrine and they are worshipped. उनकी पूजा होती है, दिन में सुबह 2 शाम 2 बार आरती होती है उसकी. Now you might be sitting here and laughing, कि अरे ये क्या मजाक है, देखो कितने मस्ती वाली बात है. But remember, some of you might have experienced in an aircraft, जब आप जहाज में बैठे हो, aircraft started going through those bumps like that, and when your heart came to your mouth, when all these macho men were screaming, pretending to read magazines, but they were shitting bricks, and everyone is afraid. And I'm sure that kind of situation may have happened in some other, if you have not happened in air, it may have happened in some other circumstance in your life when you are praying to God and say, Bhagwan, isme se bacha le mere ko, please, I'll listen to my parents, I will do this, and you're bargaining with God. That state of mind may have lasted for maybe a few minutes, and after that you would all have been giggling nervously and laughing and joking about it and all of that stuff. These troops will live in that state of mind for 1 year. And it is in that state of mind that leadership is called for. It is in that demoralized state of mind, not when things are happy and everyone is going around and markets are thriving, there is a lot of booming in the economy, jobs are going up and everything is going well. That time leadership is not really required. Leadership is required when there is no light at the end of the tunnel, when there is another tunnel at the end of the tunnel. That is the time that leadership is really required. So remember one thing, leadership is actually needed during tough times. So अगर आपके दिमाग में कोई गलतफहमी है कि जब everything is going well, then I'm a great leader. But जब मुसीबत होती है, then I'm not. That's the time leadership is actually required, when things are going tough. And this is the only thing which brings a smile into the face of a soldier. Letters which come from home, and many times, if the letter is containing some bad news, उसमें कोई बुरी खबर है, so that letter is not shown, or the bad news is not given to the jawan, because वो जवान तो ऊपर खड़ा है पोस्ट के ऊपर. मान लीजिए खुदा न खास्ता उनकी 3,000 की बच्ची, 3 साल की बच्ची डेंगू या इवन कोविड की वजह से मर गई है. In any case, by the time the news reaches, daughter is long dead. Now this guy is on the post on top, and even if you have to bring him down and try to put him in a helicopter and send him to Chandigarh, and from Chandigarh he'll reach Alwar or wherever his hometown is going to take at least 7, 8, 10 days. There is no point in telling this person at that point of time. But you, as his leader, will be told. You will be told that your Havaldar Jageram's daughter is dead. उसको उतार के नीचे लेके आओ. अगर कोई फ्लाइट हम डाइवर्ट कर कुरा के उसको निकालते हैं वहां से बाहर, तो आपको बताया जाएगा. तो आप उसकी आंखों में देखोगे रोज, आप बात करोगे उससे रोज, आप उसको बताओगे नीचे. But you will not be able to tell him that his daughter is dead. You will carry that load on your shoulder. Next time you think that you have a very heavy load on your shoulder, पूरे घर की जिम्मेवारी मेरे ऊपर है, मैं मेरे कंपनी के पूरे वेस्टर्न डिस्ट्रिक्ट की सेल्स की जिम्मेवारी मेरे ऊपर है, या मैंने ये तीर मार दिया वो तीर. Just think that there are people who are carrying far, far tougher loads. And I don't mean necessarily soldiers sitting in Siachen. Your housekeeping people who are earning 12,000 rupees a month. वो डेंगू का इंजेक्शन का कीमत उसके बच्चे के लिए और हमारे बच्चों के लिए भी सेम है. It costs the same, price of milk is the same. So with that minimal money, if they are managing, they are also holding a very, very important front. They are also holding very, very heavy loads. So next time you think you are holding very heavy loads on your shoulder, just think a little bit again. So this is the man who is standing in front of various different borders in between our enemies and us. He's standing there in -30, he's standing there in +40, he's standing in Chirapunji, all over the jungles of Nagaland and all of that. And he's standing and he's saying, you take it easy, don't worry, I am here. You can sleep easy tonight, you can party tonight. And normally I ask a second question at this point, and I ask, how much do you think an Indian Army Jawan gets paid? What do you think is the average salary of an Indian Army Jawan? Now again, unless you are from the armed forces background, many of you will not be able to answer it correctly. So I will give you the answer. It is in the range of about 35 to 40,000 rupees at the level of a Jawan, which is roughly about two nights in the same Taj Hotel, which he had to storm, in the beginning. I showed you that Taj Hotel, not even 2 nights, maybe only 1.5 nights. In the beginning of this presentation, I told you he's not doing it for some national cause. He's definitely not doing it for the money, because for people who are capable of joining the armed forces and capable of doing, there are other options available. It's not that, yes, there may be economic conscription in our country, but there are other options available. I don't think they do it for the money. I think they do it for something which should be the foundation of leadership. If there is one lesson that you can take away from my entire session, वो ये एक lesson आप देखिए, foundation of leadership, और उसमें ये फोटो देखिए आप एक सेकंड के लिए, और इसमें सोचिए कि क्या अजीब है, कुछ अजीब है इस फोटो में. There is something strange in this photo. And many of you would have noticed immediately that the commanding officer on the right, who is, by the way, my brigade commander, who's come to visit me on a day when the temperature was some -20, you can see he's not wearing any special clothing. Now, why is he doing that? Because not wearing special clothing in such minus temperature is not only exclude -19 fridge, remember freezer. So you're inside the freezer, not wearing special clothing is not only very, very painful, it's also very risky. So why is he doing it? Now I'll tell you the reason why he's doing it. The reason is, so I'll tell you another interesting story before that. So Siachen Glacier is a magnet for VVIPs. बहुत VVIP आते हैं वहाँ पे, because Siachen Glacier का बड़ा नाम है कि हम गए थे Siachen Glacier में ये वो. अक्सर VVIP वहाँ आके रुकते नहीं, वो वहाँ आते हैं, हेलीकॉप्टर से उतरते हैं, पैर रखते हैं और ऊपर चढ़ जाते हैं, फिर चले जाते हैं. उसका कारण ये है कि ये जो हेलीकॉप्टर है ना, ये जो इनको लेके आता है यहाँ पे, इन VIPs की एक्लेमेटाइजेशन नहीं हुई. तो सियाचिन आप अगर आना चाहते हैं तो आप ऐसे नहीं चले जा सकते, आपको हर एक स्टेज में एक्लेमेटाइज करना पड़ेगा। तो जिनको हेलीकॉप्टर से लेके आया जाता है, their shelf life is only about 4-5 hours. If for whatever reason the helicopter is not able to take them back, then it's a very good likelihood that they will die of HAPO or HACO. They will die of pulmonary or cerebral edema. Now the thing is that this VVIP helicopter, when the helicopter brings them, he cannot land and keep the helicopter there, because if he keeps the rotor turning, then the downwash of the rotor will freeze the skids. He can't switch off the engine, because if he switches off the engine in -25, it will not start again. So what they'll do is they will land the VIP and then they'll mark what is called a holding pattern. Now, as I just explained to you, this VIP, not this VIP, but many VIPs, they know कि अगर किसी वजह से helicopter वापस नहीं आया, so he's not listening to my briefing. He's listening to the sound of the chopper. And the moment the chopper goes behind a mountain and the sound goes away, like that, you start looking around and scared. Then you will tap him. No, sir, don't worry. Yahan se aayega abhi chopper. And then chopper will come back and he'll become a tiger again. For these kind of VIPs, leaders, nobody wants to fight. But this leader, when he comes to my post, he's sending me a message. The message he's sending me is, son, I'm the brigade commander. I have to look after the whole damn brigade, not only your place. But for the 10 minutes that I'm going to be here with you, I will expose myself to the pain that you feel for 12 months. This is called walking the talk. Rest, everything that you hear is called talking the talk. Many times in your life, you will get opportunities to share the pain of the troops you command. Please use that opportunity and share that pain, even if it is for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. If you are blessed by life and you are at this level, and the people who are your team members are at this level, please share their pain. Please share the pain of the frontline troops you lead. Only then will you be able to lead them with heart, because then the frontline leaders will know that this leader understands our pain, knows our pain, and he's not sitting in some ivory tower and giving orders from there. One of the last 1 or 2 lessons I want to share with you. This is one of the fundamental lessons we are taught in the academy, that there are no good units, no bad units. There are only good leaders and bad leaders. And I can give you several examples of this. One of my favorite examples is again from Siachen sector, where at one point of time, I had the privilege to observe 2 units in operation. As you are aware that our units are caste composition in our army, Mahar, Jat, Gurkha, Bihar, इस किस्म के. तो उन दिनों में वहां पे महार रेजिमेंट की 2 पलटनें थी और एक पलटन थी 18 महार, और ये सदर्न ग्लेशियर में थी. मतलब ग्लेशियर के भी 3 हिस्से हैं, सदर्न ग्लेशियर में थी. और 18 महार में आप कभी जाइए तो आपको तो पहले लगेगा कि सारे जवान जो यहाँ पर हैं, everyone is 7 feet tall. बड़ी the way they stand, the salute which comes back, looks in their eyes, blazing look in their eyes. लगता है किसी को हाथ लगाओ तो करंट लगेगा. That's the kind of vibrance they have. And there was another unit there in Northern Glacier. If you went into that unit, you will see everyone's face is down, their eyes are hollow, their vacant look in their face. There are casualties are much more, injuries are much more, morale is really low. And it fascinated me because it is the same pay, same training, same DNA, same troops, same clothing, same winter, same temperature, same enemy. Everything is exactly the same. And the unit in the south is kicking ass and the unit in the north is crumpling like a pack of cards. And why does that happen? One commanding officer is changed, one CO is changed, and the unit which was going down rests down and comes back to what it always was, which was a crack unit of the Indian Armed Forces. So many times when I'm sitting in board reviews or meetings or advisories and I listen to leaders talk about my sales is bad, my this thing is bad, my department is bad, my customer is bad, I sometimes tell them that maybe you should look at some other place where something is bad, because troops are troops. The people you will lead are exactly the same. Only the leaders will make a difference. Only you can make a difference. So never, ever, ever say that my troops, my distributors, my technology, no. There is something fundamentally wrong, because troops are troops. There is no distinction between the troops you have and the troops your competitor has. So then what makes a good leader? And I think I'm going to share something with you, which in the beginning, if you were cynical like me when I was 22, 23, I'm very cynical. ठीक है, भाषण भूषण देने के लिए अच्छा है, लेकिन करना तो, you know. So first time when I saw this lesson, and I'll tell you where this lesson, many of you must have seen the movie Laksh. अगर आपने लक्ष्य पिक्चर देखी है तो आपने चेटवुड हॉल भी देखा होगा. और ये चेटवुड हॉल में ये चेटवुड हाउस, this is the Chetwood Hall. और Chetwood Hall में Philip Chetwood had given this creed or the motto of a leader, and I know it might be difficult for some of you to read it because screen resolution may not be okay, so I'll read it out for you. It says, the safety, honor, welfare of your country comes first, foremost, and every time. The honor, welfare, and the comfort of the men you command comes next. Your own safety, your own ease, your own comfort, your own promotion, your own bonus, your own should come last every time. So I used to study in Delhi University, and I was a very capitalist-minded boy when I joined the army. तो मैंने ये बोर्ड देखा, मैंने कहा यार ये बोर्ड देखने में थोड़ा अच्छा लगता है, और हर कंपनी में ऐसा एक बोर्ड होना चाहिए, ना, क्यों दिखाने के लिए देखो क्या बोर्ड है हमारा. बट एक्चुअल तो उल्टा करेंगे हम, पहले तो हम अपना देखेंगे, और अपना अगर ठीक ठाक हो गया फिर यार दोस्तों का थोड़ा बहुत देखेंगे, उसके बाद हो गया तो फिर देखेंगे कंपनी के बारे में, कंपनी का क्या करना है वो. But I have to tell you, this really works. This actually works. I can give you hundreds of examples. But if you follow this mantra really, if you genuinely follow, but you have to follow it genuinely. You have to know which is the colleague in your company who comes late because he has got a special needs child whom he has to drop at the other end of the city and then come here. You have to know that. You have to know who is your colleague who is becoming disengaged ever since she's got married because her in-laws are compelling her to leave that job. You have to know the real aspirations of each and every one of the troops you command or the colleagues you work with. And if you know them to that level, I'm not kidding you. You don't need to know any domain. You need to know no domain knowledge so long as you are genuinely concerned about your troops, genuinely concerned about them. Not total pura karne ke, but genuinely concerned. My favorite story about my life is when I was posted to the glacier. We were going on a road. A Havaldar had come to pick me up on a truck, and we were traveling in a dirt road. और रास्ते में एक वो खंबा था इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का, उसमें से वो केबल कट के नीचे गिरा हुआ था. So we jammed the brakes because हमें पता नहीं था कि केबल लाइव है कि नहीं. We both went close to it, and as I was going to touch it, and जमीन भी थोड़ी गीली थी, and all, I was going to touch it. जैसे मैं उसको अपना हाथ लेके गया उसके पास, तो इधर हवलदार सडनली शॉट, "ए साहब क्या कर रहा है?" मैं झटके से एकदम पीछे, जैसे like that only. Some of you also must have gone back. So moved back, and then he pushed me aside, and then he touched the cable with his hand, and he took it out. And I looked at him and said, "What was that? You told me not to touch, and you said." He said, "साहब, आप हमारी जिम्मेवारी है." Some officer in the unit had practiced this before me. He had taken care of the troops, and that is why the troops would always take care of the officers. Try this mantra. I know it sounds a little wishy-washy and maybe very idealistic, but genuinely try this mantra. Not because I said so, not because Philip Chetwood said so, but Jim Collins, a very, very famous author, a management guru, wrote a book almost 20 years ago called Good to Great. और गुड टू ग्रेट में उसने गुड और ग्रेट कंपनीज की कंपैरिजन करी. और कंपैरिजन कैसे करी? पहले तो उसने ग्रेट कंपनी डिफाइन कैसे किया. उसने पहले ये बोला कि ग्रेट कंपनी और गुड कंपनी, अगर ग्रेट कंपनी में आप $1 इन्वेस्ट करेंगे और उसके क्लोजेस्ट कॉम्पिटिटर में आप $1 इन्वेस्ट करेंगे, तो ये ग्रेट कंपनी आपको 3 से 5 गुना, 3 to 5 times better financial result it will give. So it's a great company on financial metrics, on performance metric. It's not a great company because it gives pizza in the cafeteria or flexi hours or something like that. It's a great company because it's financially metric. And there he spoke about exactly the same thing where he calls it the level 5 leadership, where he says the leader basically focuses on the well-being of the troops he commands and not his own well-being. Try this genuinely, and I'm sure you will write back to me and you will tell me this is really something that works. The last lesson I want to share with you is to get a perspective. Every one of you who is listening to this session from me is able to understand it, belongs to 0.000001% of Indian humanity. You were born in the right family. Most of us have all our body parts working. We were given the right breaks, right education, पढ़ाई लिखाई, कई हमारे लोगों ने हमारी मदद करी, teachers ने मदद करी. Many people gave us opportunities. Many people pulled us out of trouble whenever we were getting into trouble. So many planets had to come in one line for us to be where we are today. If you don't believe me, you just have to open the window of your house and see how many million Indians are living literally hand to mouth, living in the footpath, traveling across the country bare feet, carrying their kids on their shoulder. You don't need a presentation on Siachen Glacier to remind you how extraordinarily lucky you are and how blessed you are. If you don't realize that, my personal experience, if we don't realize how blessed we are, then whatever power you want to believe in, God or whatever fate, destiny, they have a method of reminding us, Acha, you think you are in trouble? I'll show you what real trouble is. And in the last 2 years, I think all of us have gone through a fair amount of trauma, regardless of whether it's 1 degree of separation, 0 degree of separation, or whatever. But we must also remember that many of our friends have also gone through trauma. And one of the best ways to lower your own trauma, whether it is emotional, financial, whatever, is to help other people in their traumas. And that is also the essence of gratitude. That is also knowing that I am lucky that I'm able to offer whatever it may be. If you can't offer material help, even if it is just a emotional help or a support of that sort, I am capable of offering that. Will remind you how lucky you are. I bring you back to this slide, and I want you to look at the questions once again and look at your answers once again. In my experience of the hundreds of times I've done this session, the answers change a little bit. And I'm assuming it would. I mean, I would love to get your feedback, but like I said, this is not an interactive session. But my sense is that it would have changed a little bit. The score would have changed a little bit. Because if it has changed, something really, really remarkable has happened, because we began this session 47 minutes ago. In this 47 minutes, nothing has changed outside your environment. You are still in the same house. Probably if you're watching it from your house, you're still going to be in the same. Everything is exactly the same. But if your scores have changed, then something has changed inside your head. And that is where every change has to take place. Every change, whether it's a decision you decide to become a leader or a follower, whether you decide to become a contributor or a negative person, you want to become a positive person or a cynic, each and every one of those decisions begins from within your head. External narratives, influences, all of these things, they influence us, no doubt about it. I'm not taking that away. But how we respond to that is what decides whether we can develop leadership within ourselves or not. I have a little bit of more time, so I'm going to do something with you, and this is something that might help. Two things, of course. One, you see a plug for a book over here, and normally speakers at this point will tell you that this book is available in all leading bookstores and all of that stuff, but I won't tell you that. I'll tell you that if you want to read this book, you can read it for free. Its entire content is for free on the internet. You can take it from there. But if you do decide to buy the physical copy, be advised that all the money from this, I don't take a single rupee of it, all the money goes to the families of soldiers who died in operations. So the money goes to them. Anyway, what I'm going to do now is read out something to you. And this is a speech by a non-commissioned officer. And he's talking to young officers who have just been commissioned in an academy. And he's giving them his last bits of advice, which I want to share with you. I'll try to localize it so that understanding is there. It's a better understanding. But I think this is one of the most powerful leadership lessons that you can get in a short period of time, in this short period of time. So here is how it begins. This NCO is talking to the young officers who have just been commissioned, and now they are going to lead their own troops. They're going to their platoons. They're going to become young officers in their platoons. So he says, I feel a tinge of regret that I'm not young enough to be sitting out there as one amongst you, because you have so many years of challenges and adventures to look forward to. And so many of those years are now behind me. Soon you will go to your platoons, you will meet your platoon NCOs, your JCOs, your other ranks. You will meet the men whom you have to command. What do we expect from you as officers, commanders, and leaders? We expect of you unassailable personal integrity and the highest of morals. We expect you to maintain the highest state of personal appearance. We expect you to be fair, to be consistent, to have dignity but not aloofness, to treat each soldier as an individual with individual problems. And we expect you to have courage, the courage of your convictions, the courage to stand up and be counted, to defend your men when they have followed your orders, even when your orders were in error, to assume the blame when you are wrong. We expect you to stick out your chin and say, this man is not qualified and he will be promoted only over my dead body. Ladies and gentlemen, I implore you, do not promote a man because he is a nice guy. Do not promote a man because he's got a wife and 3 kids. And definitely do not promote a man because you are under pressure to promote him. Because when you leave him or he leaves you, he will become somebody else's problem. Gentlemen, we expect you to have courage in the face of danger. Many of you will soon be in operations where there are no safe rear echelons. During your tour, opportunity will arise for you to display personal courage and leadership. Opportunities could also arise from which you may emerge as heroes. Listen to the definition of a hero very carefully. He says a hero is an individual who is faced with an undesirable situation and uses means at his disposal to make that situation slightly more bearable. A hero is an individual faced with an undesirable situation, uses means at her disposal to either nullify the situation or to make it more bearable. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do to be heroic to the people you lead. That you are faced with an undesirable situation, you have some means, whatever means you have at your disposal, but with your full attention and full passion, you are trying to solve it. If you do that, as far as the people are concerned, even if the problem is not completely solved, they will consider you to be a hero. Do not display recklessness and expose yourself and your men to unnecessary risks that will reduce their normal chance of survival. This will only shake their confidence in your judgment. Now, gentlemen, you know what we expect from you. What can you expect from us? From a few of us, you can expect a prove yourself attitude. From a few of us who had the opportunity to become officers but didn't have the guts, the motivation, or the wherewithal to accept the challenge, you can expect a little bit of resentment. And from a few of us old-timers, you can expect tolerance. But from most of us, you can expect loyalty to your position, devotion to our cause, admiration for your honest effort, courage to match your courage, guts to match your guts, endurance to match your endurance, enthusiasm to match your enthusiasm, and a sense of achievement to match your sense of achievement. We will not mind the heat if you will sweat with us. We will not mind the cold if you will shiver with us. And when our cigarettes are gone, we don't mind quitting smoking, provided your cigarettes are gone. Then he says something here, which I think is the most powerful line of prose I've read in my life. Leadership prose, definitely. He says, and if the mission requires, we will storm the very gates of hell right behind you. They're very clear about 3 things, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that. If the mission requires, not because you want to, we got a father as a general and you want to outlive his shadow, or you promise a girlfriend back home that I'll get you a medal, or your, a CEO or MD is coming and you want to show how much of a Chatak Charlie you are in front of him. Not because of it. The mission requires, we will storm the very gates of hell right behind you. They're very clear who has to go in first. Gentlemen, you don't accept us. We were here before you. We accept you. And when we accept you, we don't make a song and dance and some big, hoopla about it in some bada khana, in some party, in some corridor. We'll meet you. We'll look you in the eye and we'll say, Saab to theek hai, you're okay. That's our way of indicating that we have accepted you. Remember one last thing. No Havaldar was awarded his fitis, his stripes, without showing something to somebody at some time at some place. So if your Havaldar shies away from you, if he is slow to assume responsibility, if he appears to be mediocre and less than enthusiastic, maybe sometime not too long ago, someone refused to trust him, someone refused to support him, and someone shot him down when what he was trying to do was the right thing. Old wounds heal slowly, old scars fade even more slowly. Your letters appointing you to command are letters that appoint you to command. But no letter, no insignia, no big car, no corner window, no MBA degrees can appoint you as leaders, because leadership is an intangible thing. Leadership is not something that you're born with. It is something that you develop within yourselves each and every day. So be you lieutenants or be you generals, we are the guys you have to convince, not your bosses. You have to convince us, and we will meet you more than halfway. You are a leader in the organization that we have served in for so many years, and you will help us fulfill the dreams that we have for ourselves and our children. I wish you all the very best in the exciting and challenging years that lie ahead. May God bless you all. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for your participation in this session. That's the end of my session. Thank you so much. Back to you, Bharat.
Thank you so much, sir. You will be staying on the screen, and there's some questions that the youth have asked. So I'm just
We have 4 minutes, so why don't you just ask me the question instead of
yes,
chatting
sir.
it up?
The question is that how can I apply your teachings in the current scenario to make life better and have a more optimistic view of life?
Quite simply, first I told you in the end, you do, whether you like it or not, whether you admit it or not, you do belong to a very tiny minority of humanity. Firstly, you're alive still. If you're asking this question, many people are not. You're also not very sick, because if you're asking this question, you're obviously attending this session. Now you already got 2 strikes in your favor. I think we have to constantly bring ourselves back to look at what we have rather than what we don't have. Because if you focus on what we don't have, then I can tell you, you're going to have a very sad life, because there's pretty much tons and stuff of you're never going to have. So it's far better that you focus on consciousness. This is something, I'm not giving you some big grand philosophical gyan. I'm saying consciously, when you wake up in the morning, you look around you, you consciously remind yourself that I have education, I have this, I have this, I have this. You actually run a list in your head, because at the end of the day, what is your life? Your life is what you pay attention to, right? So if you pay attention, right now, 1 hour of your life, which would have otherwise, been invested in something else or wasted in something else, you spent over here. So this 1 hour is your life, because you attended this session where your attention became your life. So if you focus your attention deliberately on what you don't have, your life is going to be a fairly empty one. But if you focus your attention on what you have and what you can achieve, you have years ahead of you, which so many people don't have. You have an education behind you, which so many people don't have. So when you look at and focus attention on what you have, my sense is you will automatically start getting the motivation and the sense of it's okay, we'll figure it out. That kind of a sense will start coming in.
Right. Thank you, sir. There's another question that another youngster has asked, that what do I need to do to become a youth leader in my circle of influence? Where do I start from?
Firstly, start helping your circle of influence. Not talking to them, not being preachy to them, not talking down to them. I'll give you a very simple example. In every school, every college, there is a group of 4 or 5 friends. And amongst those 4 or 5 friends, there are some characters. Every group has that. One character will decide where we'll go, which movie we'll watch, which movie we'll bunk, what will class we'll do. Kind of hinges around that one person. Now, that person is not necessarily the richest person, not the one with the most resources, but that person is the one who has got most influence on everyone else. And usually that influence comes with that person being helpful, approachable, basically a nice person. And all things being equal, I think nice people make for better leaders, because people want nice people as their leaders, because they say all things said and done, he will do the right thing or she will do the right thing. So I think that's the first fundamental step. Don't worry about whether I become this president of this association or president of that association. That rarely is a format of leadership. I think a format of leadership is much more when people listen to you and you become an influencer, whether you have a title or not, but you are a person who influences the outcome of any situation. And that usually comes by being an individual who helps others.
And so the last question that we have is how interrelated are discipline and leadership for becoming an effective leader? I cannot seem to find the discipline of doing things in life. So how can I A, impact discipline in my life, and B, how interrelated they are to lead a better life?
So there is no debate in anybody's mind that without a discipline, there is no way you can achieve. Without a structure, you can't. You can be as motivated as you want on the 1st of Jan to lose weight. But if by 18th of Jan you have dropped the weight reduction plan, then that motivation, you might as well, sort of throw it into the ocean. It doesn't really make any difference. So your discipline, the structure, a promise that you make to, so basically fundamentally what you're saying is that I am not able to keep a promise to myself.
Mm-hmm.
In effect, that's what you're saying. And then again, you want to become a leader, which means people should trust you when you make a promise to them. Wow. Wow. So you can't maintain a promise that you make to yourself, but the expectation is your followers should believe in the promises that you'll make for them. I don't think that's going to happen. The good part of the journey, or the good news, it's not good news, but it's good news in some sense, is that the journey of improving your discipline is actually an exercise in itself. It's a line I like to use a lot, like C language was written in C language. So when you train yourself for discipline, you're actually in the journey of discipline. So for example, if you train yourself that I'm going to do 3 tasks that I normally don't like to do, I'm going to read every day. I am going to exercise at least 20 minutes or 25 minutes every day. And I'm going to help one person out every day in some meaningful form, not making a lady cross the road or something like that, but meaningful form, teaching tuition to somebody who requires it, working with someone else to help them solve a project, visit some old people, at least 10 old people every week to see whether you can do something meaningful, which involves effort on your part. And you visually track how much you're going to do it. Why I suggested helping other people is because then you have a commitment that you're made to somebody else. It's not helping by giving 10 rupee note to a beggar. That's not help. But you have made a commitment to someone else which has to be continued. Now that commitment will teach you discipline, and discipline will be the foundation for discipline. So no person who runs the Mumbai marathon for the first time on their life starts with 21 kilometers half marathon. They don't do that. They begin by little, then their feet hurt, then they are tempted ki chodo yaar kya karna sala marathon nahi karenge, this that. They go through those cycles and they defeat themselves. They defeat that naysayer in your brain. So discipline, to my mind, is the fundamental bedrock of leading yourself. And if you cannot lead yourself, I think you are being very, very naive if you expect others will follow you. Very naive. We are done with the time, but I just want to leave you with a message. My Twitter handle is there on the screen if it's still up. If not,
yes, it's still up. It's still up. So your Twitter handle is there, email is there.
Feel free to tweet or follow me. And if you've got questions, you can tweet me there. I usually check my Twitter far more often than my mail. So I'll be more than happy to interact with you if there's any question that I could not answer right now. Thanks a ton, Bharat.
Yes, sir. So before you conclude, I would just request you to stop sharing your screen and kindly make your way to the center stage.
All right, hang on.
And in part, for the benefit of the audience, I would just request you to just give us a 1 to 1.5 minute summary of today's talk that you've presented, Leadership at 26,000 feet. For the youth of India, if you could just summarize this in a minute and a half for the benefit of the audience.
Okay, I'm going to try and do that. This session that you saw was itself a summarized version of a 4-hour workshop. So you're asking me to do a summary of a summary. But 4 or 5 points. The first point being that, as I said in the beginning, regardless of what is the scale and size of a vision of a project or whatever, the last 100 meters of the delivery of that project is the young leaders, and that's who you are. So whether it's the national policies, the developmental plan, the GDP, the growth, the 5 trillion, you name the milestone, and that milestone will eventually be led by young people such as yourselves. So you are at the last 100 meters, the bleeding edge of this nation's sort of growth story. The second part is that leadership is about facing difficulties. It is not about, like I gave the example of a knife. A knife doesn't get sharpened by cutting it through butter. It gets sharpened only when it's rubbed vigorously against a stone, when there's heat, sparks, light. Only then there is leadership learning. And lastly, leadership is a practicing art. It is a contact sport. It is something that you need to practice, and practicing leadership means that, as the gentleman in the end asked a question, partly leading yourself, because if you're not able to lead yourself, if you're not able to lead yourself into the next level, whatever it may be, like I discussed even before the talk, whether it's improving your reading every day, whether it's getting the knowledge of your own different cultures, of your own, horizontally getting to know people who come from different communities, different religions, different and vertically from different financial strata. That all is part of leadership. Growing yourself is a part of leadership. And eventually knowing that in the end, people want leaders who are nice people, who are good people. In the end, that's what wins. So also remembering that one of the best ways to improve your own sense of gratitude is the ability to help others. If you even help others a little bit, but meaningfully and from your heart, that is also a journey of your own leadership development. So I guess that kind of captures what I was hoping to convey.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your thoughts. I'm sure the audience is extremely moved, and it was quite an impactful and influential talk that you've presented. And it's been a great learning experience for me as well. And I'm sure we love to hear from you more in the years to come. And thank you for sharing your thoughts. It was a pleasure having you, ladies and gentlemen. Captain Raghu Raman sharing his thoughts on leadership at 26,000 feet and how leadership can be learned, a trait, provided you put your mind, body, and soul into it and have the discipline for it. Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure having you. And
Thank
on
you,
that
Jai.
note, we conclude the talk. Jai Hind, sir.